You're watching Imperfect Heroes Insights into Parenting, the perfect podcast for imperfect parents looking to find joy in their experience of raising children in an imperfect world. And I'm your host, DJ Stutz. Let's get started.
Hey, thank you everyone for joining us today on Imperfect Heroes podcast. And I am so excited for our guest today. We had a little snafu, and so we had to rearrange some things, but I'm so glad to be able to have Susan back. So, Susan Husa, we are going to be talking today kind of about, well, not kind of, but we're going to be talking about being a leader in your own family, and you are so good at this and with what you do. And so Susan's also a coach. And um, so one of the things that I tend to ask is with my parents is, what makes you think you're a leader now? How do you know that you're a leader in your family? Because that's different than being a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think?
And so, how would I define myself as a parent being a leader?
Or I would say any parent that is being a leader, what are some of the key things that they can look at to say, oh, maybe I'm not, or yeah, I'm doing great?
Got it. Yeah. Well, I always like to think of, the fruit of the spirit, because that's love, joy, peace, kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I even put it in front of me right now: patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control.
There
And
we are.
so I, those are the things that I look for if I'm with strife and anger and selfishness and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's where I just feel like it's time for me to just, I always call it come to center, get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
What is stirring here? So if we're not
Yeah.
that calm place where we're feeling like we can just trust everything, but as parents, there's a developmental stage going on for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that whole the grace comes in for self, to remind yourself that you're learning, you've never done this before.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, so I'm the oldest of seven. And I've been around kids forever. So I was thinking, when I was pregnant with my first and we had her and this cute little baby comes, and I think I know what I'm doing. I mean, my youngest brother was born the summer before my senior year in high school. And sure enough, she was just this easy baby, easy going, getting along. And I thought, man, I got this down. But then
Yeah.
I had another child
Uh-huh.
and I found out I did not have it down.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love the way that you went back to, the gifts of the spirit are a great way to gauge, am I living in these areas? Are they part of my life? And then gauging from that. I think if you're having
Yeah.
to yell at your kids all the time, you're probably not being much of a leader.
Right. And I remember one time, I believe my son was probably about 3, my daughter was about 1. And
Mm-hmm.
I I was like this ferocious beast. I was like, you need to, whatever it was. And ah, I was just caught in that moment. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like lightning striking me. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt so bad. I had this shame, this guilt, and this like,
Oh,
oh my God, I'm the worst parent, right? And oh, it was terrible. And then I just, really reflected on that. And I thought, I never, ever want to talk to anyone like that. And so I vowed to always talk to my children as if someone else was in the room with me.
that's a great gauge.
And then I actually later even took on the idea that, okay, Lord, you're with me. I'm talking in front of you. My actions are showing to you. So,
Right.
yeah. And we're never going to be perfect. We're practicing these things. We're practicing love every day.
Right. Well, and nobody's ever been a perfect parent. I mean, we have the perfect example in Christ if you're a believer, as you and I both are. But
Yeah,
he had mortal parents. Mary and Joseph, were mortal parents. And I'm sure even they messed up here and there.
of course, right? Yeah. So I
Right.
love how you bring that forth today to just say, what does it mean to you to be a leader as a parent?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, when I was raising my kids, and so I grew up in a home that there was a ton of yelling, you know, and a fair amount of violence on us,
Uh-huh.
if we didn't do what we were told.
Yep.
Um, and so I knew I didn't want that. But how many times did I find myself, though, just I was frustrated, I was stressed out, I was whatever. And I have to turn around to see if my mom's standing behind me
Uh-huh.
because those are her words I'm hearing and her tone of voice. And
Right. It's
yeah,
like, wait, oh my God.
hey, when did you come down?
Uh-huh.
So, and you got to like regroup. But I think one of the neat things that we can do is instead of beating ourselves up about that,
Hmm.
but I think a good leader, and jump in because I want you to, but I think that a good leader is someone who's curious.
Hmm.
When something doesn't go wrong, we're not going to blame everybody, but and
Yeah.
we're necessarily even going to get mad at everybody, but we're going to say, okay, this didn't go as we planned. What do
Hmm.
you think happened? Like, why do you think? And so if you approach it with an attitude of curiosity
Hmm.
rather than, why did I do this? And you're beating yourself up, or even worse, you're telling yourself it's okay that you behaved that way with your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's, some different ways of doing that. But I think a true leader is actually curious.
Yes, I believe so too. And that's something that I'm learning, especially after going through coach training.
Mm-hmm.
The curiosity is what brings us into that compassion and that empathy, so that even, to self and
Mm-hmm.
others, because as parents, like what came to me when you were, just sharing that, was those tumultuous times where, um, like for me, I didn't have all the tools. And so I was consistently like trying to make things so, be so organized and have
Mm-hmm.
everything, just right for everybody. And, even myself, right? Like I was trying to like
Mm-hmm.
take care of myself so that I could feel like I had the energy to do all these things that uh,
Yeah.
were important to me at the time. And so it's recognizing those moments when you might be feeling out of sorts and just bringing yourself back to this, whatever it is that you can think of to be relaxed. Like everyone knows what that feeling is like, to be relaxed, and to
Mm-hmm.
just allow yourself to drop your shoulders, chill out for just like a second. Go hide in the bathroom, even if the kids are banging on the door. Mom,
Mine was the
like,
closet.
right? Like hide somewhere. I ran across
Yeah.
my neighbor's house and said, okay, I just need you to sit with me for a minute because I'm about ready to lose it. But it's so funny because looking back, it's like it's so easy, and I really want to have some compassion here for parents. It's
Yeah.
really easy to get lost in so much because there's so many different aspects of your
Yeah.
life that that your heart is attached to. And so, in all
Mhm.
sincerity, like catching yourself in that moment, being able to relax and just kind of, gain perspective on, what is it that I only need to do right now?
Yeah. And sometimes you really need to chop it up into those smaller pieces. What's the next right thing I need to do?
Yeah.
You
Am I
know,
going to make that dinner I had planned and bought all this food for, or am I just going to throw peanut butter and jelly out tonight?
and that's
Or are
okay
we all
too.
gonna have breakfast for, or am I gonna
Yeah.
suggest, hey, who wants to make dinner tonight? Like, you guys want to have
Mhm.
make cookies for dinner? I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
peace of mind.
Yeah. And we've all gotten to that point at at
Mhm.
some time, as we're raising kids.
Mhm.
And so I think that is a key thing, is to give yourself the grace to say, wow, we've had a day.
Yes.
Cereal for everyone.
Yes, cereal. That's the key right there.
There-
Peanut butter jelly or cereal.
yeah.
Yes.
And you can choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. And I think too, a good leader is someone who works to set up those, whomever they're leading, whether they're an employer or on a volunteer thing, a church thing, or family. You are looking for ways to make sure that others succeed.
Yep. Absolutely. Coming alongside, right?
Right. Right.
Like, how may I support you? And then asking them to support you when
Yeah.
you need it.
Yeah. I know it's just some simple things like, not that I was far from a perfect mom. But one of the things was when my four kids, the fifth came along after everyone had left the house. But when the four kids, and they were all little, and my husband's working 80-hour weeks, and we had a pantry, with shelves that were kind of down low. And
Mhm.
that's where I kept our plates. Do you remember Melmac plates? I don't know if you remember Melmac.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. The
They're like
melamine.
a hard plastic.
Melamine.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
but they're inexpensive. They're
Yes.
not going to break if the kids drop them.
Yes.
And so I kept the plates and the cups on that bottom shelf in the pantry. And
Perfect.
so even my 2-year-old or 3-year-old could
Mhm.
go and grab a cup, and get a
Cute.
drink of water.
Yes.
Or I could say, how many plates do we need? Now they're learning to count, but the
Mhm.
the plates were in a place that's not a typical place for a kitchen, but
Yep.
it was a place that helped my kids um, participate in getting dinner
Mhm.
ready and having those responsibilities. And then they could do it themselves. They didn't need me to get the plates down for them.
Exactly. That was a smart mama. You mentioned a perfect parent. I wasn't the perfect parent.
Yeah, no one is.
And so, right. And I, as a coach, I catch those things, and I'm sure you do too.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and so what we do in those moments is we have this picture of what that perfect parent is. We have an idea
Mm-hmm.
of how we thought we would be a parent or how things ought to be,
Yeah.
right? And just being able to be you become a little more real with reality
Yeah.
of, oh, I thought it was going to be like this, and this is like costing me my health because
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard to do X, Y, and Z. And so I love your idea even of how can I make this more interactive and create this environment where we are all participating. And I'm going to
Right.
put the plates on a lower shelf so that I can be the perfect parent because I'm teaching my kids how to interact in an environment where there's
Mm-hmm.
more than one person and collaborate.
Right. I think, and I use this as in teaching a lot, when I was teaching my kindergartners and stuff, but um, I would often talk about with parents and then with coworkers as well. We can be all stressed out about where this kid isn't reading at this level yet. Oh, this kid isn't doing this level of math yet. And they're, whatever. And we can get all concerned about that. But we're never going to get to where they should be if we don't look at where we are actually. And
Yeah,
so we can do that with ourselves as a parent. We can do that with our kids. But to sit down and
beautiful.
kind of say, okay, this isn't like I want to be here,
Mm-hmm.
but until I recognize where I am now and then what logical next steps are, I'm not
Yeah,
going to jump from here to here. You
right.
know, if I'm going to get anywhere near there, it's going to be these incremental steps. And so it's okay. In fact, it's important with your kids. Okay, I would
Mhm.
like my child to not have 18 tantrums in a day,
Yeah,
right? But it's
right.
okay. Is as we're working at it, I'm going to start taking data because I'm a teacher
Yeah,
as
that's
you know
awesome.
this week we had 18 tantrums, but earlier, but now today we only had 15. Okay. So parents can kind of get lost in that. There's that improvement happening.
Yeah.
Because 15 tantrums is still a lot, but
Yeah.
wow, we've made when you lose 3 pounds, you feel great, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then, what's causing the child to have those tantrums, right? Like
Exactly.
what needs aren't being
Yeah.
met? What,
Yeah.
are they 2? Are they 3? Like, you and I were in a conversation about 2-year-olds, and it's like, oh, the terrible, like, well, yeah, the 2s and the 3s are like really a good gauge on like, what's kind of cool about 2s and 3s is it's a real good picture of how adults are.
Mm-hmm.
We want it our way, and then we realize as
Mm-hmm.
parents that refining process is so cool because you actually start to unwind from being wanting it your way. it's the give and takes of parenting. So
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, how many times have we looked at a 2 or 3-year-old and said, I wish I could throw a tantrum like that? Like, I feel like I could do it. We could like really be next to each other
Oh
on
my
that.
God, yeah.
But I have to be a grown up. I can't do it.
Well, I mean, in essence, we will have tantrums in our own minds because we're
Yeah.
grappling with something that we want to resolve. Really, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We want to resolve things because we're humans.
Yeah. And we want to really fix things,
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm an employer and I'm running around fixing everyone's mistakes without making them say, okay, I'm going to help you, but
Mm-hmm.
let's see where it went wrong. And
Yeah.
let's see, so we're teaching them as we go. We're not
Mm-hmm.
this helicopter parent that's, rushing in, or a lawnmower parent. You've heard that term. It's a
No, I
newer
haven't.
one that's come out. I
Mow them
love
down
it.
like, no, it's my way.
You are in my child's way. I'm gonna mow you out. Like my child will
Oh,
never even have the problem because I've
oh,
cleared the way
yeah,
before,
yeah.
and yeah. And
And then my
so
heart goes out to the parents that are with that, like seriously, compassion for all types because they've come
yeah,
from an environment that has given them certain tools to really survive. I guess we'll just keep it at a
mm-hmm,
level of understanding in that and I tend to get so serious because I do have this empathy and this
mm-hmm.
compassion for parents that are going through parenting. You're learning so much, and you're navigating so many different relationships. I mean, you and your
Yeah.
spouse, yourself, and then you got these
Mm-hmm.
little ones and everybody needs something, and there's a
Yeah.
lot to take care of, just food, clothing, and shelter, let alone. And so you're managing a big empire, you know?
You are. Yeah. And I mean, and there's some nights where you go to bed and you're just saying, nobody died today. I'm a success.
That's right.
you know, like I killed no one.
I know.
And so I'm going to feel good about that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
We all have those days, don't we?
Yes. Gosh, and if you and I can just bring a glimmer of hope to parents today that may be struggling or they're trying to identify with like, how do I lead well as a parent, and it's like you
Yeah.
started with, the whole curiosity piece is be
Yeah.
curious about what's going on. Like, why am I so uptight? Because you have 1,000 things on your list to do. Like, you have this big vision of, oh my God, and it's going round and round and round in your head, and
Mm-hmm.
so just continuously honing it in, like
Right.
pulling it in and
Yeah.
just and another thing that came up for me when you were talking about something is when the steps that are like everyone's at a different level of a step, right? Like when you were
Right.
talking about the kids, everybody's at a different level, right? And then
Yeah.
yeah, we're all
Yeah.
different. We all like some like to read, some don't, some want to tinker with the toys, and some want to design something, and
Mhm.
so paying attention to that with all your little peeps in your household, even yourself,
Mhm.
your spouse,
Mhm.
just being aware of, just asking them, what do you need? Oh, and not comparing yourself to the Joneses.
Oh,
That's
for sure.
huge.
Because the
That's big
Joneses just hide their
though.
problems better.
Well, and it's not that they're hiding anything. It's just like you might notice that, your friend is really good at decorating and you're not. And
Mhm.
it's not your gig. And so you might feel like maybe you're
Yeah.
not so worthy because, oh, come to my house and it looks like crap because I don't know how to decorate. But oh, when I come to your house, I'm like, oh.
Right.
And so giving yourself grace on those things and really just going to your friend's house and saying, wow, I love the way you decorate. And when she comes to your house, that you're just enjoying her and you're loving her in your own
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. And maybe she's feeling like, oh, Mrs. Jones comes to you and says, oh, I love the way that you connect with your kids. And,
Yeah.
I've got my things going on, maybe even a little city or whatever, that everything has to be perfect. And I love the way that you have fun with your kids and you're not so uptight. We
Yes.
each have things that we shine in. And
Right.
so, well,
And then just like allowing yourself to be who you are and appreciating those in your environment, in your home, and appreciating
mhm,
those extended out into your community, and just
mhm.
being curious about not just the people in your home, but those outside of your home.
Yeah.
So I love how
Yeah.
you brought that curiosity in because it's just huge.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that as that can work with people you're working with, and a
Yeah.
neighbor, or someone at church, or a sibling, an adult sibling,
Mm-hmm.
or you're an adult now, and that relationship with your parents,
Yeah.
how that goes, finding that zone of curiosity. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really, and I think that, we've got so much going on right now with people being angry at each other. And
Mm-hmm.
there's, I don't think we're as divided as, the media makes us out to be, but there's that element of that, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
so I'm a very political animal,
Mhm.
and I have some kids that are on my side and some kids, and I don't mean side, but believe the same kind of ways. And I've got other kids who are like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
and, and as a parent, for me, it's kind of hard sometimes for me to say, okay, listen to what they're saying. And so we've had to come from an agreement that both of us come from a place of care,
Mm-hmm.
right? We
Yeah.
want good things to happen for people. We may not agree on how that works, but we
Yeah.
absolutely need to trust each other that we care.
Yeah.
And that's really helped out. And I think too, like little kids, they want they want life to work out,
Yep.
you know. And so um they tend to do what works for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? If they're throwing
Yeah.
a fit in the middle of the store, they've probably found out that, hey, that works. I'll get the Cocoa Puffs,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
And so, yeah. And so I think that with that curiosity piece, it could be like, why did Johnny think it was a good idea to throw himself on the floor and scream in the middle of the cereal aisle?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and let me figure that and go through that. And
Mm-hmm.
then I could, once I do that, I can come up with a plan and put
Mm-hmm.
some systems into place.
Yeah.
Systems are really important, again, for a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And helping him come to terms with the fact that we already have Cocoa Puffs at home, or
Hmm.
or Cocoa Puffs is a special thing that we have, whatever. And so today's not the day that we're going to get them. Mommy needs the money to
Hmm.
get the Cocoa Puffs, and we don't have it today, or
Right.
something, right? Like helping
Right.
them. I mean, I used to do that a lot with my kids. I would stop and I would really help. I would listen to what it is that they want and they need.
Hmm.
I took so much time doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, if you have those kind of systems in place where you can say that, or, you know, you're personally responsible enough to make a list of the things that you need, and you let your kiddo carry the list, carry the pencil, they can cross things off. Well, I
That's
want this.
like an
Oh,
idea.
let's look at the list and see, is it on our list? Oh, it's not on our list. Sorry. Next time though, let's get it on the list. You know, now think of the brains and the things that you're teaching right now. You could even have a rule that we can have one thing that is not on the list.
Ooh, yeah, right?
hmm We can have
Yeah,
one thing. So is this your one thing that we're going to get, or do you want to wait and see if there's something else? You
right,
know?
right.
So now they're learning some more things. So there are a lot of things that you can do and have these systems into place. But I think giving the kiddo the list and letting them, cross it off and stuff. I mean, a 3-year-old loves to do that. They're, oh, I'm in church. This is great.
So cute.
And
That's what I love about you is you know so much about the developmental stages and then just really spot on with the grand ideas that really do relate to their developmental stage. And then, just relating that all to leadership, like the big thing for me is, collaborative environments. So at the outset,
mhm,
teaching those. And then just like God gave us boundaries, like that's why the laws were written right early on,
yeah.
just to say, hey, this is how we can all love one another, right? Like there's some parameters, there's some boundaries here. And so that's the same as a leader would create those excuse me, safety boundaries within a home. Like these are the things that we value. These are
hmm
the things that we, um, the boundaries that we stay in to keep each other safe and
hmm
be respectful.
Yeah, I think that is key and important. I think another thing is, just like in a business, you have a mission statement, right?
Hmm.
How about developing a mission statement with your family?
Hmm. Yep.
Now you might need them to be about 5 years old. Once they're in elementary, they're old enough to process and kind of think about those important things. But I remember going through that process with my kids, and we came up with a mission statement, and it was
Cool.
have fun, be good, and serve the Lord.
Yeah.
It was just those three. And then we made a flag, and and
Yeah, that's
we'd
cool.
we'd put our flag out on our family fun days. And we were totally like crazy about it.
So
Um,
fun.
but I think that that's really, and a good leader of a company is going to make sure there's a mission statement. Why
Yes.
not have a family mission statement? And then you can
Yeah.
refer back to that, you know,
Mhm.
and they've been part of coming up with it and
Yes. I love hearing that you
working
do
it.
that. And
It was fun.
it's an excellent idea. It keeps everybody and the spouses on the same page. And
Hmm
there's this safety feature, right? That's why we have
Yeah.
curfew. That's why we
Right.
have laws. And
Right.
so, years later, my son said to me, Mom, thank you for being the strict mom.
Yeah.
Because it gave him an out,
Yeah.
of some of the things that would have been very detrimental to his livelihood.
Right. Right. And it's okay. I mean, they say the number one deterrent for to teenage drinking is parental disapproval.
Yep.
That's the number one thing they'll talk about.
Well, and
And
I was
so,
never afraid to tell when I was navigating relationships with my kids' uh friends' parents, I
mhm,
would ask them a lot of questions of things that
mhm,
were important to me to know.
mhm.
And I was open to sharing with them any concerns or questions that they had with me about different things. And I was always the one that would call usually first and ask them, especially in high school, what are your
Mhm,
drinking policies? Because these are mine.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And that is great to do. And you can get them used to that. Oh, here goes mom. She's doing it again. But I
Mhm.
mean, start it very young. They won't remember a time when mom wasn't asking those questions.
Oh yeah.
Mom's always asked those.
And guess who's
And so,
respected the most?
yeah,
The people with the boundaries.
absolutely. Yeah. Right. And then isn't it nice to know that you're going to come in touch with other families because you ask those questions. You're going to connect with other families that are like, she's my person. Like we are two peas in a pod as far as those values and those boundaries and those
Mhm.
whatever, And so now you've expanded your network, places where your child's safe to be, and they know too that you're a safe place for their kids to
Well,
come.
and then, there were some parents that didn't have the same values, but my kids knew what
Right.
we were. And so then I just told them, actions create consequences. So your choices outside of the home are those that you will suffer. So you make whatever
Mm-hmm.
choice you want
Right.
if you're willing to suffer the consequences. That's that way, because I always used to hear, allow your children to fail when they're at home. Because when they get to be adults and they fail, they go to jail or they, experience
Exactly.
a harsher consequence.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny, especially when with the little, I just want to be a grown up. I don't want to have any rules, and I want to do what I want. It's like, good luck with that, kiddo.
Yeah, right. And then the beautiful piece as a parent is, you know, it, being at that maturity level is
Mhm.
incredible because there's going to be this pushback. And so
Mhm.
if you are willing to recognize that, I always think about how God feels about us. He's like, oh, I really told you, this is the way to do it,
Yeah.
and oh, just listen to me.
Yes.
Right?
Right. How many times have we said that as parents, and so it just makes it very relatable to our relationship with God as we have children, and we can see some of those parameters. Of course, it's much deeper and stronger with God than it is with parents, but parents are pretty strong, in the love that they
Right.
have for
And
their kids.
that internal dialogue that you have with yourself,
Mhm.
like that's not something that you would speak out loud. It would be within yourself just to be like,
Yes.
oh, I pray that they will be strong to say no, or
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up prayer. One of the things that I think is very helpful, I mean, from the time they're little, and I mean, and it's ongoing now, and my kids are older, but is let them hear you pray for them,
oh yeah.
you know, and let them hear that, you're aware of their life, and the love that our Father in heaven has for them. And but I think when they hear you pray for them by name, I think that really, again, part of that leadership that really helps them see you as a leader, a spiritual leader in your home as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for
That's
bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So fun. When you were saying that, something else came up, and it was uh praying for them, and oh my goodness, what was it? But yeah, I lost it, but that's fine.
It happens to the best of us.
Hmm.
It'll happen more as you get older, trust me.
Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
just the joy of parenting and the concerns. I guess one thing that comes up is
Hmm.
um sometimes as a leader, we feel like we've failed. And you mentioned that earlier, laying your head on the pillow and just feeling like there's just something that you didn't quite do right, or there's something
Yep.
stirring. I'm just going to bring this up right now. The book that I always had by my bedside was Raising Great Kids by Townsend and John Townsend and oh my gosh, how could I ever forget his name? Henry Cloud.
There you go. You're better at
And
remembering authors than I am. I
oh well,
remember
I mean,
titles. That's a good book.
it was by my bedside for like
Hmm.
18 years, and every time I'd lay down and I'd be like, oh, it was terrible, or my kids were struggling with something. It's
Hmm.
written in chronological order for age,
Hmm.
and I'd open it up and it was like always spot on.
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then I just felt like I could rest easy that night. Oh, I know what I was going to
Absolutely.
say. One more thing
Oh,
is I always
good.
tell my kids that, you're under my care when you're in my home up until you're 18.
Hmm.
After you're 18 years old, you're reporting to God now. You're not
Yeah.
reporting to me. And
Mm.
so I'm here to support you and adult with you, but I'm excited for you and I'm here to help you meet the challenges that you
Yeah.
have in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's making that transition, and that's not something that you just flip a switch with. Oh, they're 18. Good. But I think that begins very young again with helping them to use that executive functioning we talk about in education, but the ability to make a decision based on the outcomes that might happen from that decision, right? And so when you're teaching them, even at a young age, and they're saying, they're upset or they have a problem, and say, well, what would you like to see happen with this problem? And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I just want to punch him in the face, or whatever. Because they
Mm-hmm.
get there. And boy, I've had times I've wanted to punch someone in the face, but I
Yeah.
can't now because there's a rule that says I have to go to jail if I do. So, so I would say, okay, what would happen if you punch them in the face? Well, he's going to know and I'll feel better and da da da. I'm like, well, okay, what else might happen?
Yeah.
So instead of just saying, no, you can't do that, but
Mhm.
actually start asking them those questions. Well, what would happen if you did that?
That's
Um,
good.
and then, so is there a way to get some, I see that you're angry. Is there another way that will not get you in trouble
Mm-hmm.
that you can do
Yeah.
to rectify the situation? But when
Yeah.
you can start having those conversations with them at a young age, you
Mm-hmm.
know, Johnny took my truck, or it's
Yeah.
my turn to ride on, the bike, or
Right.
whatever it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you can start with them young and saying, okay, you feel like it's your turn for the bike, what can we do about that?
Right.
Mhm.
That
And
one
what are
always
some
was hard for
options?
me. That one was always hard for me because it's like Johnny's riding the bike. He's having a good time. Okay, now Susie wants to ride the bike. It's like, well, Johnny's on the bike, so go find something else to do. But then,
Right.
is it really right to just say, okay, Johnny, now you have to stop and let somebody else have a turn?
Right.
It's like, well, set
Right.
parameters up before you go outside. Okay, there's only one
Hmm.
bike, and we know that you both want to ride it. So today we're going to draw straws to who gets to ride it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like it's all about compromise. My God, get married and compromise with your husband after they've grown up in a different household than you.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's the same thing. It doesn't matter whatever relationship you're in. There's going to be that give and take, and yeah,
Right.
right. Leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership is all about emulating. I like to say who Christ is. Like he's the one that emulated love in the utmost um personal and loving and kind way.
Yeah.
And so to me that's the mission, is to love your neighbor as yourself.
Hmm.
And there's a lot said in that. And then of course as a Christian, it's like love the Lord your God with all your heart, right? Because if we don't
Right.
start the first of a leader, like what is that vision of a great leader, then how do you know how to even be a leader?
Right. Right. And I don't think a lot of those qualities are actually taught, in school. And so, but then here's my thing. We don't teach that in school anymore. Well, really, was that ever the school's responsibility? I
No,
think that all
it's
along, that's
everybody. It's always in the home. Everything stems from
yes,
the home. And so
yes,
what what is, and I hear your that in your voice because you were a teacher, and I'm sure it just grinded you every day. But I'm curious, how did you get over that? Because that would be a skill applied to everything that grinds you. And that
yeah,
would be
yeah.
a perfect example right now to share with everyone. Like, how is it that you didn't let that just poke you in the back every day?
honestly, I think the biggest part of it was for the most of my teaching, I always taught in very, very low income, generally the poorest school in the district. And
Mhm.
so we had behavior problems through everything. I mean,
Wow.
generally half of my class had incarcerated family, more than half. I usually
Mhm.
had at least 1 to 3 homeless kids in my class. There was a homeless shelter that was in our school zone.
Mhm.
And so with these huge behavior problems, and I realized that and through time and through learning, and
Mhm.
then with my own experience with raising kids, that
Right.
the more upset that I would get about their behaviors or their whatever, it
Mhm.
just was another loud voice to the cacophony of anger that was going on. And that applies to home as well. But, um, I think that when I started recognizing that, and then I would have parents come to me as their teacher, as their kid's teacher, and like, I don't know what to do with Johnny,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
yeah. And so I could sit down with them and um, help them with some ideas, and we could talk after school. I always was very, very open with that. They would always tell me it's not a good practice. All my parents had my home phone number, my cell number. They
That's
did.
cool.
And no one ever abused it. In 20 years, I never had anyone abuse it.
That's sweet.
But
So what was it for you that helped you within to
mm,
really like get centered and not let that thing just drive you, like have that thorn in your side?
well,
How did you
I think
overcome
it
that?
I think it depends on the topic, because some things
Yeah.
are still can still be a thorn
Yeah.
as I'm growing and learning
Yes.
about different things. But I
Yes.
think that the experiences that I had with people who um, I would initially think, oh, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
yeah. And then through teaching, I had to, and I started recognizing that everybody's just trying. Everybody is a product
Yeah.
of the goodness or the hell that they've gone through,
Yes.
and that it's not my place to be another stumbling block. And it
Right.
took me some years to get through there and get to that realization that, I mean, I'd have dads come in with their faces all tattooed and the teardrops and,
Yeah.
all of that. And if I'd seen someone out on the street like that, before I came to my epiphany,
Yep.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd been kind of fearful of that person and
Yep.
very judgy.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
now, and as
Mhm.
you start hearing other people's stories, so it's kind of like the old saying that travel erases discrimination
Yeah.
and discrimination erases travel.
Mhm.
So that as you get to know more and more people and expand
Mhm.
your horizons and truly getting to hear their story, it
Yes.
changed me. It totally changed me.
Yep.
And that's where I got to let's see where we are instead of common or being upset over what should be. Let's look at what is and
Wow.
then look at next steps. So that works for everybody.
That's
Everybody.
beautiful. And right, so that's a one of those leadership traits. Like it, whether you're one on one with your 2 year old, your
Mm-hmm.
spouse, your neighbor, your whatever, any other
Mm-hmm.
being, like
Mm-hmm.
what is now, and is there something that we need to solve, right? And come
Yeah.
together, and what needs to happen here right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think to being able to kind of look at the moment
Mm-hmm. Because that's
and
all
being
there.
present right now.
Right? Because when we
Yeah.
get into the future, we're stressed. And if we look behind, we can be stressed. And if we're
Mm-hmm.
in the now, and that was a hard concept for me. When I look back on it, I see it differently now. And of course, right? A 2 year old sees, well, whatever. Like as we grow and mature, we start seeing things differently. And so as
Right.
parents, that's exactly how if I was going to give any advice, it would be is to just be in the moment. Like, if have those concerns even written down, so that you can pick those apart with someone like a professional, like hire a coach like one of us, right?
Yes.
and and resolve, because if you don't resolve, then it's going to continue to just stir and grind and create
Yeah.
the unnecessary dis-ease.
Right. That's absolutely right. And in fact, and then when you're working with someone, and whether it's a friend or you've hired a coach or whatever, and you're listening to the suggestions that they give, really pay attention to, the hairs on the back of your neck, or,
Mhm.
that feeling like, oh, this doesn't feel right. I
Mhm.
recently heard a parenting coach give some advice that I thought was horrible,
Mhm.
just not good advice. And,
Yeah.
and so you can feel that, and that, and it's okay to then move on and find someone that's really giving you advice that is, once again, let's go back to the gifts of the spirit. Does this
Right.
fit what they're telling me? Does
Right.
this fit with those gifts of the spirit? And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
because there's a lot of bad advice out there too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Susan, if my listeners want to know any more about you or connect with you, where can they go?
Oh, thanks for asking. So how about you can always email me at well, let's make it easier. My website is animatelifecoaching.com. So that's like animate your life means to bring fully to life. And then everything is on there. Yep.
Okay, that makes it nice and easy. And we'll be sure and have that in the show notes. And so you can just scroll down. If
Mhm.
you like what you've heard today, let us know. And you can always leave a comment, or get on our Facebook page with both Facebook and Instagram is just Imperfect Heroes Podcast. And let us know what you're thinking, and tell a friend, of course. So, Susan, I have one last question I always ask my guests,
Mhm.
and that is, how would you describe a successful parent?
Aw, well, let's just add curiosity right at the top. And a successful parent is one who has identified their values and is fully committed to honoring those things that are important to them
Mm-hmm.
and encourage others to do the same.
Perfect. That is a great little nugget of wisdom right there. Susan, thank you so much for spending this time with us, and
You're
and
welcome.
being a part of Imperfect Heroes.
Aw, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Well, that's it. My first effort to put my podcast on YouTube and Rumble. And I'd love it if you would put some comments down below and let me know, what did I do great? What could I improve on? What would you love to see more of? And then be sure to what? Yeah, subscribe and follow. That would be great. I just push on that. And the last thing, tell your friends. All right, we'll see you next time. And until then, let's find joy in parenting. Bye, guys.